Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 303, The Four Great Religions. There's a link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. Haven't made the blog posts yet though for this. This is a theosophical work, 130 pages, so it's an intermediate read. The initial text longer, formatting-wise, works from this particular era and time. A lot of times we're double-spaced. I mean double line, so it's an interesting format. And it's funny because actually like 50 years before they used to cram it in like double, as small as possible. I'm assuming to save paper. Anyway, this particular work goes on through to describe four specific religions, a little bit about them, a little bit about their basic belief systems, but mostly from the theosophical viewpoint, because this is by Besant. From the theosophical viewpoint, looking at them as successive spiritual epochs of human history leading up to what they imagine to be the fifth coming epoch, which is like the New Age, basically. It's funny because when people are like, they associate New Age meditation and stuff like that with the 60s and with drug-using hippies, but actually their grandparents from the Victorian era were the ones that sort of got into that first, because of the colonization of India, largely, and forays into the Far East. But the first religion's Hinduism, then Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and Christianity. Notably left out here, Islam not mentioned, post-Christian, because that would fuck up their timeline, nor some of the other older pagan religious systems, including like ancient Egypt. And of course, at the time, they didn't realize that the Sumerian spiritual system was older than what you get in the Indus Valley, because Göbekli Tepe hadn't been discovered yet. And I'm wondering if Catalhoyuk had actually been fully excavated back then at the end of the 19th century. I'm not 100% sure on that, so you can look it up for yourself. Basically, the idea, though, is that each of these religions has certain overlapping features, and this is why they choose to put them in a timeline and say, well, this keeps happening over and over at intervals. Obviously, we're going to have another incarnate spiritual movement after Christianity. And they always looked at them as being successively more wise and more refined. Sort of, it's an optimistic appraisal of human civilization. The idea that life is slowly ascending towards some enlightenment, towards spiritual goals, as opposed to being degenerate and stuff. And that was very much in vogue prior to basically this era. A lot of people felt that the world used to, romanticism, they used to think, oh, it was a golden age, we had the noble savages and the noble pagans with their soaring white columns, and now things are like, there's, coal mines and shit like that, and it's just not as fun anymore. They enjoyed life more, wine, women, and song. And they looked at it, this is an inverse sort of that romanticist notion. Anyway, it also talks a lot about the different spiritual scriptures in their particular lore. It's fully noted, and initially had footnotes. I decided that because most of them are very short and simply allude to a text, like it's the title and then, the page, I just decided to put them in the actual text themselves. So it gives you a huge springboard for potentially learning more about these four religions, as well as some of the connections between them. The existence of the spiritual figure like a Buddha or a Shiva, some of these figures, whether mythological or quasi-mythological, a Jesus, something, prophets, and so forth. The existence of the idea of the ability of a person to enlighten or to ascend or to improve in some manner successively throughout time. It's also interesting to note that with each of these stages, according to a theosophist, with each of these stages it becomes successively easier, potentially at least situationally, to do that, to escape from the cycle of life and death, of physical matter, which holds you back and is considered to be kind of gross and degenerate, and not gross as in you, but gross as in like it's capable of decaying. If it lives, it will die. It will eventually degrade and turn into slime mold, and then the cycle of life repeats itself. And it's a very, very interesting compilation of lore here. So again, link to my edition of this work in the description. Highly recommended. It's one of the better theosophical works, certainly, that I've read. And it's some parts of it are dense, but it's a bit easier than some. Some of them go off and they start talking about Atlantis and root races and stuff like that. With this one, Besant has largely focused on religious history. I think to the credit of the actual text and its readability. And of course, second and third links to my books, blogs. I will be making the blog post for this later. That's about all. Peace out.